All right. Okay, we are recording. All right, guys, I am super, super excited tonight to do our team huddle because we have a very, very special guest on with us this evening. Her name is Aspen Emry, and she is the Senior Field Development Regional here at It Works. But some of you might know a little bit of our story. I wanted to kind of just have her come on tonight and just talk to you guys about this industry that we're in. And if you're like, wait, what industry? Network marketing, right? That is what we do. That is, okay, that cord's not working for me right now, but the industry that we are in is network marketing. Some people call it multi-level marketing. You'll hear it called direct sales. But I just wanted Aspen to come on. She has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this industry and just tell you guys a little bit about like what we have our hands on. That way you're equipped when you're talking to people, you can feel confident and excited about what you have your hands on and who you're partnering with and who you're deciding to do this business with. But before we get into all of it, I'm going to turn it over and Aspen's just going to like blow your mind with like information and lots of really good, fun stuff. But I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about Aspen and I's story because as some of you know, she's my best friend, my BFF. We're the A-team, like home girl from another Mista, you know. She is my bestie, but I met her in this industry, you guys. And so most of you guys know my story. You know that I was in network marketing before. I've actually been in network marketing since I was 19 years old, in and out. Okay. I was in a few different companies. And I got introduced to a health and wellness company that had just got started. And one of my best friends from high school had moved to Nebraska. And she called me and she was like, you have to hear about what I'm doing. Well, I had just quit the skincare company that I was with because I wasn't making any money at all. And so I really didn't want anything to do with what she had said. And I was so like burned by that company that I honestly was like, Laura, I'll listen to you because you're my friend and I love you. But I'm not doing this. And I actually grabbed a piece of paper and wrote red flags at the top of it. And as she was talking to me, I started writing down like why she needs to get her money back. That was my plan. At the end of the conversation, I was going to tell her all the reasons why she needed to call the lady that duped her out of her money and get her money back. And the end of the conversation ended with me being like, whoa, like this is different. This is something that I kind of want more information on. And she was telling me about this woman who was very successful in this other company named Arbonne. And I had just left Arbonne. And so I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me the lady that's helping you build this business just walked away from like an ambassador pay in Arbonne to go build this? Like, are you kidding me? Why would she do that? Like, why on earth would you walk away from residual income to go start over in a new company? And I was like, I want to talk to her. And that her was Aspen Emry. And so Aspen got on the phone with me, and I think we talked for like 3 hours. And I ended up joining that night, and she somehow talked me into flying down to Dallas like a week later for the convention. And I got to meet her for the first time in Dallas, and we just became quick friends. She was my mentor. I learned everything that I know about this industry and about how to build duplicatable, successful teams from her. And I was so excited that when our journeys ended with that company, that she decided that she wanted something more for her life and her family in this industry, but not building a team. And that is when It Works hired her. And I'll let her kind of share her own story, but I just wanted you guys to hear it from me, like our story, how I met her, how that whole thing kind of came together. And I just think it's so cool to think that like how many companies later, Aspen, like you and I are still here, like building this business, and you get to still mentor us and just in a different way, in a bigger way than I think you ever were able to when we were together in Arrow. So I will zip my mouth because I want to give it over to Aspen, and she shares so much wealth of knowledge with us. So thank you so much for coming on here with us tonight, Aspen.
You're welcome. I always feel like it's a little bit ironic that some of my closest friends are on this team and I don't spend a ton of time with you guys. It's almost like in order to not make everybody else jealous, Ashley and I like run the other way at events because they're all going to be jealous of our time. So I'm always excited when I get to be here, and I see some familiar faces on here. Many of you I've met in person several times, and others of you are new, and I've heard awesome things about you, and I've seen us get connected on Facebook, but this is my first chance to be with you as a team. And so like Ashley said, you know, I started in this industry a long time ago. I had been a high school teacher. I taught high school Spanish, and then had my children back to back, a few back-to-backs in there, and knew that I wanted to be home. I quit my job after my first son, did various things to stay home. Not everybody is able to be a stay-at-home mom and have a husband that fully provides income. Some do, and if that happens, that's great. But for us, I needed to do things on the side to make it work, and I was totally willing to. So I had a cleaning business and a daycare and did random stuff to be able to be home. And honestly, we were pretty much dirt poor, but it wasn't horrible because at the end of the day, I got to be home with these little boys. And so at the time when I had just 3 back-to-backs, I basically had my 3 boys that were 3.5 and under. That's when I was first introduced to this idea of network marketing. And I don't know if you can relate to being skeptical when somebody first approaches you, but I was skeptical, not necessarily that day, but I had never, in my 25 years of life at that point, I had never really seen anybody make money. You know, my stepmom tried various things, but we were still poor growing up. I had never seen it work. But something about the stage I was in that moment when a girl at church said to me, hey, you should take a look at this. You can work from home and teach other people how to do the same thing and make money. I was just at a right stage in my life where I was sick of scrubbing toilets and hauling these little boys around to clean. And so I said yes. And the rest is history. I built, like Ashley said, to the top of a couple companies. And people will say, how did you do that? I want you to know right now, it isn't that I'm a natural salesperson. You know, saying that I've ever been a salesperson, that kind of scares me. I'm like, what? I have to sell something? It was honestly a couple of things. One, I wanted it really, really bad. I wanted a life that I never got. And it wasn't that my life was bad. I just wanted more for my kids. It was a miracle that I had as many kids as I did because of how many losses we've had along the way. But I wanted it really bad. And I was very clear on why I wanted it and what I wanted. And it wasn't for me, the $500 a month. I know for a lot of people it is, but I'm one of those that was like, no, I want the 5 figures a month. I want my husband to come home and not have to work if he doesn't want to, or if he works, it's not stressful because he's not carrying that weight. I wanted Disney World trips, and I wanted to be a yes mom. You know, not a fancy yes mom, but just a yes mom. And so the wanting it really bad and being very coachable and learning what it would take to build and just doing those things and not getting bogged down with the rest. And also learning about the industry. I really got good, or I got comfortable, I should say, at knowing what I had my hands on. And I knew early on that even though I was super passionate about the company that I was with at the beginning and the products and so much was amazing, I learned enough early on to know that if I wanted it bad enough and I plugged into a system and was in the right company, that I could have really gone anywhere. So it took a lot of fear away from me because I knew, you know, any day if there's something that's a better fit or a right fit, I knew that I would be okay. And I knew that as a former school teacher, my last paycheck as a school teacher was $2,432. $2,432. And we know that's roughly diamond income. And so I knew that even as a school teacher staying in the system for a while, that I would never make much more than maybe $4,000 a month. And there's nothing wrong with $4,000 a month, but when you can make 5 or 7 or 27 or 87 grand a month, I was like, yeah, I think I'll have that. because I never minded working hard. I never minded being home and juggling the kids and figuring out how to really focus on those high payoff activities. It never bothered me. I like being productive and helping others and putting my best into something. I love that. I just love that in network marketing, I got to write my paycheck and I got to have some control, because in teaching, you really, if I know Jesse's a teacher, I know Steph's been in the school system, I know some of you can relate, that you really just kind of move along a chart. Every year that goes by, you get a little bit more pay because you apparently are better, because you have more experience. You take a few more classes, you get more, and that's it. So I found a love of this industry that really showed me that any of us, no matter where we are, we could jump into something, and if we plugged in, we could have, this would be the vehicle for us to have our dreams. So I want you guys to be really clear on what it is that you want, because network marketing is that vehicle that can get you that. Because most other things that we do in our life truly trade time for money. I go teach, I get money. I can't teach at 7 high schools at the same time and get 7 times the income, right? Or if you do hair, or if you're a nurse, okay? Or if you mow lawns. We own a landscaping company, so that always comes to mind. You can only mow so many lawns at $40 a lawn, right? So this was something where I thought, man, Katie, Kristen, Jesse, Abby, this can be our vehicle to get everything we ever wanted, because it's not just about trading time for money. You may put in 15 hours a week into your business now, and in 4 years, you might still be putting 15 hours a week into your business, whatever your number is. And you may be making $500 doing that now, and you might be making $50,000 a month doing that later. Okay. You don't have to work 180 hours a day to make that kind of income. So how I met Ashley was because I was willing to do whatever it took to build a business. And so she told you her version of the story is her neighbor, her friend gets me on the phone with her. I'm in Nebraska, she's in New York, and her friend says, you know, hey, Ashley, can this girl Aspen call you and talk to you about this business? And, you know, we now know, I'm glad I didn't know Ashley was sitting there with a notebook writing down all the ways that I was a big dummy in network marketing. I was just so stinking excited. I didn't worry about who was on the other end. I knew I had permission to call this girl and tell her what we were doing. But here's how I got to that call, y'all. I worked out at a local gym, and there was a girl there that had a pink heart rate monitor. And this is back when, like, you were really cool if you had a heart rate monitor. Like, there were no Apple Watches and all this fancy stuff. It was this new thing that you could actually exercise and see your heartbeat at the same time. And she had a pink one. I had a matching pink one, match made in heaven. I talked to her about my business one day over lunch, asked her to get started, said, let's talk to people. I helped her talk to a girl from the hospital that she worked at. That girl said, well, I've got a neighbor. Will you help me talk to her? And it was that girl from the hospital. It was her friend next door that knew Ashley. And so for those of you building that have been in a while, that's 4 levels deep. Pink heart rate monitor girl from the hospital, neighbor, Ashley's friend, and then me calling Ashley in New York to talk to her about the business. And that's how we ended up on the phone together. And she says that we met a week later in Dallas, but it might have been a couple weeks later, because in the in-between time, I drive 11 hours to Michigan to do her launch party, and she doesn't go. Because she can't. She's got a little baby, and her husband, you know, wasn't around, and she couldn't drop everything. But I said, well, I'll just load up all my kids. I mean, I've only got 4. I have 5 now. But at the time, I'm like, I only got 4. I'll just throw a few of them in the car, and we'll just head out to Michigan. And, you know, is your sister cool if I, like, do a party? I show up at her sister's house, take a nap on the couch, literally Megan's house, take a nap and do her launch, call her, and we meet a month later. I wanted you to know that piece of it, because you don't have to be great at sales. You don't have to have it all together. You have to want it bad enough and be coachable and remove from yourself any option to quit. But what I want to talk to you a little bit more while I have you here tonight is a little bit just about network marketing. You've heard me say a few times, it's the vehicle to your dreams. And I say that because I know that many of us, like, you may be building this and you and I don't know the stage that some of you are at, but maybe you haven't even quite bought into that belief yet. You might be at a stage in your business where you haven't fully seen it. So I just want you to know that after 14 years of doing this, I have seen the ups and downs in this business, in this industry. I've seen, people that haven't always been successful, and I've learned what those difference makers are. And obviously a lot of it comes down to work ethic and being in the right place. But I want to talk to you about a couple things. One is what to look for in a network marketing company. And I want you to know this because y'all have obviously chosen a network marketing company, right? We're all here together with It Works. But I want you to have some of this information, because when you're sitting down sometimes with people who maybe have more questions than others, I want you to have just a little bit of confidence in what we're doing and where we're at. And this is always something that I use as a framework. Like when I was looking at building in a second company, because I left that first company, even though we were making great money, it wasn't a right fit for me anymore. And Ashley knows this about me. I've said to her before, if no amount of money is gonna make me do something that's not a right fit. So the first company wasn't a right fit anymore. So I waited for a while and ended up finding another company to build in. And so for those of you that don't know, I now work on the corporate side of It Works. So I now have a different type of responsibility to help build the whole company. But the things that I look at to make a decision about whether or not a company kind of makes the grade, I call them, well, I don't really have a name for them, but they're the 5 key things that I would look at when looking at a company. So for those of you taking notes, the first thing I would encourage you to look at is the corporate side of network marketing. And now if you're with It Works, you obviously know, look at our corporate team. Look at Mark Pentecost. These are some of the things that I was looking at when I was looking at It Works. Okay? Looking at the corporate side of it. So when someone asks you questions about why you do what you do, this can kind of help give you a little bit of backing. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say? So when I say look at corporate, making sure that you can trust those people in charge. You maybe don't always know them personally, right? These are big companies. It Works is big. I don't know when you'll be meeting Mark Pentecost in person, but looking at the corporate leadership. So whenever I see, people have presented companies to me over the years and have said, hey, will you take a look at this or look at that? Corporate's one of the things I look at. What's their track record? It's amazing how many companies are out there that have some very interesting characters at the helm, if you will. I'm not going to badmouth any company or anything like that, but I think just looking at a track record, being with people that that you can trust. The second thing I look at is the field leadership. What's the field support like? And that means the people literally in the field that are building. What does that look like? Are they building? And it could mean people like me, on a literal field team. Not every company has that right out of the gate. But looking at what kind of support and training and tools and mentoring is available for the field. The third one is product, and especially with innovation. And 3 and 4 kind of go together, but product lines I think is super important to take a look at. You'll hear Ashley and I say, we would have never joined a company that didn't have a consumable product. And obviously a results-driven consumable product is even more important. It's got to be something that's going to get results, that's going to work, that people, can fit into their lifestyle, something that's going to make a difference in their life, provide a solution. And the reason consumable products are so important is because each month you'd love to have people reordering products, either sampling new things that they haven't tried before or reordering what they already fell in love with in the months prior. And then the fourth thing I said kind of goes along with products because it's the timing and trends piece of it. Looking at companies, are companies keeping up with timing and trends? Okay, for example, collagen. That was a really big win here, right? Collagen is a trend. And I don't mean that in a way that's bad, like, oh, it's trendy, it'll be gone. But it's something that the health and wellness industry has figured out is an important product that people could be using. And It Works found a way to source collagen and create a product. So that's what I mean when I kind of say product and timing and trends go together. It's also important for companies to stay on trend with their compensation structure and bonus structure and things like that, you know, staying relevant in this industry. And that leads me to the last one, which is the compensation plan. How many of you, and you can just think this to yourself, but I want you to think about how many of you know the differences between compensation plans? And don't freak out. I'm not going to go through every compensation plan right now, but think about that for a second. A lot of times we join a company because we get excited about a product, but we don't always know what to look for in a pay structure. And I learned that the hard way, because 2 of the companies that I've built in and made a substantial amount of money actually really weren't the best compensation plans. You can still, in a not so great compensation plan, if you're good at what you do or you work really, really hard, you still can make some, you know, good money, but it's a lot more effort. And it's not that I'm afraid of effort, but I just want you to know they're not all created equally. Okay, some create momentum a lot faster than others, and some get, I'm trying to think, get you to the higher ranks or higher income earning a little bit faster than others. And so they're not all created equally. So a couple things that I want you to kind of just know about compensation plans is what you look at is the ability to earn money right away. So think about it works. You know, are there ways that you can earn money right away? We've got the fast starts and the keto cash and the wrap cash. Okay. Not every company has that. Then is there a residual income? You know, it's a consumable product. Are you paid a good amount on monthly orders? Are you incentivized to do, you know, good customer service and have customers and keep customers loving the products? And then is there a good opportunity to earn significant income, like leadership income, by helping people promote and helping people work to higher levels? So that's just kind of a brief overview. And I think sometimes people like to hear that because they want to know. Have you ever heard the phrase, there's a method to the madness? They want to sometimes know that there's a reason that not all companies are the same. You know, and not all companies are flawless. I mean, nobody out there anywhere is the perfect company. No company out there hasn't made mistakes, right? Okay, that's just, I'm telling you, like, it reminds me of in Good Will Hunting. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but when the counselor says to Matt Damon, you know, I know you think she's perfect, but I'm going to spare you the suspense right now. She's not perfect. You're not perfect. But the question is, are you perfect for each other? So I'm going to tell you right now that there's no company out there that I've ever seen that's perfect, but it really is finding that one that aligns with you and looking at those areas and making sure it makes sense. So Ashley, is there anything you want to say on that piece? I mean, you know me, I could talk for 2 hours about it, but I want to jump to another thing, or if someone has a question.
No, I think you covered it. And like, I think, you know, while you were talking through that, you guys think about ways that you can be leveraging this information. So don't just get on here, take a bunch of notes, learn about this industry. I want you thinking about ways that you can leverage this, meaning who are you talking to that maybe has been in another company before, has looked at other companies. Maybe you're sitting here going like, oh my gosh, I just realized what I have my hands on and I need to go tell the world because this right here is an amazing business opportunity. So as she keeps talking, I want you guys thinking about that. How can I market this? How can I leverage this to create momentum in my business?
Yes. And I know not everyone wants these kinds of details. So this wouldn't necessarily be something that every time you have coffee with someone or go live that you need to share all of this. But I'm the kind of person, and I know there are other people like me, I know Ashley's a lot like that stuff, that do kind of want to know more about, you know, why this? I mean, when I scroll on Facebook within a 10-hour window, I may see 8 to 10 different companies. And if I was literally just looking at the companies out there, if I didn't know better, I wouldn't know how to pick. I'd be like, well, I kind of like mascara, so I think I'll sell mascara. Like, I wouldn't know. And that's what I learned the hard way. And so I always like to tell people, I learned something the hard way. Now you get the easy way. And so, it's why after my last company in January of 2011 went out of business, there were some corporate structuring things going on there. It had a ton of potential and there was a lot going right. But once again, there were some gaps at the corporate level and the corporate leadership aspect of it that weren't known right away. And they didn't have network marketing experience. They had had a lot of business experience before and a great track record there, but they just didn't really understand network marketing. And it's just such a huge asset to have people at the helm, okay, of a company when they know network marketing. I mean, look at Mark and Pam and Mike. They were distributors 25 years ago, long before they got into the business. So yeah, they grew and learned the corporate side, but they had that experience. And that was just something that went wrong. Well, it's why it took 6 years after that for me to say yes to It Works, because, there were a lot of things that came along that just weren't a right fit, or there was something that was just off. And I had learned the hard way that you don't stay or you don't jump on something if it's not the right fit. So I was working on being patient in that aspect. So I love it that you said that, Ashley, about leveraging it and just learning a little bit more about what we do. So
real quick, hold on before you go on, you guys. If you get in a position, any of you, where you are talking to somebody that you can tell wants some of these details, please feel free to reach out to us, because I know for me, like when I signed up with Cami that day, literally I was like, where do I go to download the comp plan? And I read the whole thing. Like I went home and I read it, I highlighted it, I drew all over it, because I was somebody that has been in this industry, knew what I was looking for, knew what I didn't want, what I did want. And you will be talking to people that are like that. And instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to give them the information, like come to me, come to Steph, come to Kristen, come to Melissa Denslow. Like we'll help you guys like figure out how to talk to them. So don't get overwhelmed as you guys are hearing this information.
Well, yeah, and that's been a huge thing, even with my position here at the company. There have been a lot of our top leaders that have reached out when they are talking to someone who's in another company, but they're not happy. They know it's not a right fit anymore. And it's not that we're out to like take those people, right? These are people that are looking and open, or that maybe they tried something 3 years ago and they really are saying, okay, I tried it and I kind of like the idea of it, but I was burned. So tell me how this isn't going to be the same thing. And so they've actually put me on the phone with some of those people before, just to be able to say, and like I said, we don't need to bash other companies. I've never done that, but I am able to say, well, here's some areas that we happen to be strong in. And to kind of compare that a little bit and then let them make a decision from there. Once again, that's a little bit of posture. I teach a lot about that, but just not being desperate. We can talk about posture on another Zoom. So one thing that intrigues me too, as someone who loves this industry and just really understanding how it works. And I also like to look at companies that have hit it really, really big. They actually call them whale companies. Okay, there are whale companies out there who have hit $1 billion in sales. And there are smaller companies that we know haven't lasted as long, or they're still here, but they never really hit it big. I could probably name 5 companies that you'd go, wait, I've never even heard of that. And they're $250 million a year companies that are doing fantastic. But there are some things that kind of happen as a company's growing. And this is actually true outside of network marketing too. So if any of you are a little bit business minded, you're gonna like this information. But there are 4 phases that a company goes through. And it's just kind of interesting to watch. And sometimes you don't exactly know when you got into a company, what phase they're in. And there are times companies can actually get back to a certain phase temporarily. But I want to just tell you what they are. The first stage is the formulation phase. So this would be like where It Works was when Mark and Pam started it 17 or 18 years ago. I don't know, were we almost at 19 years ago? The formulation stage is that beginning stage where the company's been around just for a couple years and they're experiencing some of that slow growth. It's not always slow. There have been some network marketing companies that actually hit $1 billion within 3 years, okay? But sometimes it's that initial kind of foundation stage. That's what I think of when I think of formulation. So even with a brick and mortar business, you kind of have those first year or two where you're really building that foundation. And it's funny because I look back at some of the It Works people that got in during that stage, and I'm like, oh, why couldn't you have called me and sponsored me when we were in the formulation phase? I could have been on your top line. That would have been kind of cool. Sometimes I call people like that early adopters. You know, you might have heard that phrase in business before. Some of those people that kind of grabbed a hold of Mark and Pam's vision early on in that formulation phase were early adopters. They kind of caught that vision for what they were going to do with that crazy wrap. And remember, it was called that crazy wrap thing for a reason, because people kind of thought it was crazy at first. But that's part of them just being visionaries, catching the vision for something and seeing who hopped on board. So you've got that formulation phase. And then you've got a second phase, which is called the concentration phase. And this is when the company, I mean, they're not necessarily exploding at this point, but they are really starting to grow. In pockets of people, they've heard of this company or this product before. It's starting to pop up places. People that are building it are making great money. You know, it's some of those that I told you that are out there doing, you know, maybe $75 million a year, you know, which is a ton of money for a company to be doing. They're not quite on the map yet, but they're starting to get some traction. That's the concentration phase. And then the phase that everybody wants to be in is the momentum phase. Have you guys ever noticed a company like that you had never heard of? All of a sudden it's everywhere. Okay. I joined my first company when it was kind of at the end of this momentum phase. Okay. And that's not a bad thing, but I joined at the end. And so what I mean by that is all of a sudden this company was popping up everywhere and everywhere and everywhere. And I saw it all over the place and I joined. And it was kind of crazy momentum. And what happens in a company when they're in momentum is it's kind of like everybody starts jumping on the bandwagon and wants a piece of the pie and wants to be a part of it. They have a little bit of FOMO. It's like all the cool kids are building this, they're doing this, they're using this product. And so even on Instagram, you might have seen different products and things that pop up. So there's definitely that piece of it when it's momentum. And it doesn't mean that when you're in momentum, you don't work, you know, that you don't have to work, but you're like getting this big boost just because it's this hot thing and you kind of are wondering what's happening. And then companies then transition because things can only go up, straight up so long before there's a little bit of a leveling out where people got to catch their breath a little bit, right? And where it kind of settles into its new normal graph, whether that's stabilizing, sometimes it goes down for a while, sometimes it goes back up. And so that fourth phase would be stability. The product kind of reaches a critical mass point where people have heard about it. You kind of level off, and the buzz and the excitement around a given product may not be as strong as it was before, but a company settles into this sweet spot and people just kind of continue joining and continue building. And so I like that piece because I like to really understand business. One thing that I know from It Works that I've just seen as I learned the history of the company is we kind of hit that sweet spot of momentum around 2012 and 13, when all of a sudden this wrap is showing up everywhere and it's all over the place. And I remember hearing about it. I remember going, what is that? How can it work? Is it a fat patch? What is it? And momentum. And we actually were so fortunate to stay in that crazy momentum for a while. And then we've had some ups and downs, you know, leveling out a little bit. And then we launched Keto Coffee. And so what's kind of cool is that is a fresh face. That is a fresh face. It doesn't mean the wrap isn't still something people are after. I actually have a stack of wraps in my bathroom. I was just getting ready to photograph and go, I'm on a 12-week wrap challenge. But from the people that are looking at our product lines, they maybe think they've seen that before. But what they haven't seen is the keto coffee. So we're definitely seeing a rumbling happening on some of the teams. People are getting out and doing expos and, you know, putting keto coffee and collagen out there. And all of a sudden we're seeing like, wow, they're doing a double take again, going, what is this thing? I want to get my hands on it. So that's one of the things I'm excited about. And that kind of goes back to making sure companies, you know, innovating and being, you know, timely in trends is we, you know, it's why you've probably heard corporate say a little bit, you know, we're reinventing ourselves. Well, that's not a super strong word. That just means, hey, we're kind of looking at what the trends are and we're making sure that we kind of fill in the gaps with some hot products that are going to keep the attention on us. And so I just love learning that piece of the business. And what I also love is that really momentum and growth like that. You know, I didn't know any of this when I joined a company, and I joined one at the end of momentum when it was kind of gone-ish. And I joined another one when it was in the formulation phase right at the beginning. And then I joined another one when it was super far past momentum and it was over. And they were trying to kind of boost momentum again by making comp plan changes. And in all three of those, I just said, I'm doing it, and I did it. And so I want you to know, no matter what phase we are in at any given moment, really so much of success in business is just aligning with somewhere that aligns with who you are, being a part of a group that's your family and connected. And it's why no matter where I've gone, my friends have stayed the same. You know, my son, who just turned 15 yesterday, asked me about a year and a half ago. He said, Mom, are your best friends all people that you met in network marketing? And I had never really thought of that before, but I was like, Ashley. And then I listed off, like, mentally, I'm like counting like my top 4 or 5 closest friends. And I thought, yeah, they are. And it's because I built relationships. So no matter whether I was in the formulation phase, stability phase, momentum, whether I was, you know, more skincare or more this or more that, whether the corporate leadership at the time was wrong and I didn't know that, it all came down to my work ethic and building relationships. And no matter where I was, those friendships stayed the same. And that gave me such peace knowing that, you know, that's the part that you always have with you. And so it excites me. I hope you guys are grabbing hold of collagen and keto coffee and the energy pixie sticks and some of those fun products. Obviously, I want you wrapping and using skincare and all the things that have been tried and true and tested with this company, but take a hold of those cutting edge, you know, products, especially through this holiday season, you know, as we're working to get those customers in and get those new people. I know if you're not in the US, we're going to have collagen launching internationally here this month, still very, very soon. So we'll be able to get that out there. And that's another piece of it is, you know, international markets have momentum in some of these phases at different times, you know, when a company is growing in different markets at different times. But at any given time in your business, it's up to you just to get into that activity and that action, creating traction and finding ways that you can get out there and share. And I want you to always remember that there's approximately 7.25 billion people on Earth and 7.1786 billion that don't know anything about It Works. And I just made up that second number, but just know that there's so many people out there that haven't drank your coffee, that haven't drank your collagen, and that haven't heard about what you've got going. So get them as customers, share the story, educate yourself a little bit on the industry here and there, just so you feel even more confident that you're in the right place that can take you to what you want, and make sure you know what you want. And that can change. Maybe right now it is $500 a month. Maybe it's just some besties and $1,000 a month, and that's great too. But let that dream evolve. My dreams are still evolving. You know, I was on my phone last night and Brent's like, "Are you working?" And I was like, no, I'm not working. And he's like, "Well, what are you doing?" I was like, "Just like taking screenshots of like beach houses and stuff." And he's like, "What?" Well, I'm like, "I'm still dreaming. I need stuff to put on my dream board." So never stop dreaming, you know, no matter what stage you're at in your business or where you're at in your life. Just be a lifelong learner. And I think that's a huge thing that you can do. So I hope, and I'm not closing it out, but I hope that I can be back here with you again soon. I know this was very detailed and green and techie and numbers. We don't do these all the time. If this is one of your first, please don't be scared of Zooms. If you're not a numbers person, we can do song and dance next time. I can tell you silly stories about building and what that looked like. I've got a lot more things to share, but we thought it was important in case you are sitting there going, yeah, I want to know a little bit more. Sometimes this is info you need to go back to your husband that's not quite on board with this whole pyramid thing. They don't know what it is. And so they start calling it some weird thing. And you're like, well, I'd like to know how to explain it to you and know a little bit more. So Ashley, do you have any thoughts or questions or something you wanted me to hit on more?
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much. And I do know that we probably will do a couple more of these, you guys. I just really wanted you guys to have some tools in your tool belt to take forward, to be able to leverage what we have our hands on, to give you guys a little bit of confidence in this industry as a whole. I know when I first started with It Works specifically, that was one thing that I leveraged a ton, was the company that I chose, who I decided to partner with, the momentum that we were in at the time, at that moment. And I was able to talk to people and say, oh my gosh, Aspen, I just got my hands on something. You have to take a look at this. And so I want you guys, whether you've been in for 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, we can create that momentum in our own business at any given time. Just like Aspen said, we can decide tonight, that tomorrow is the first day in our business from the standpoint of our energy, our excitement, our confidence, and how we're leveraging what we have our hands on. So I just wanted you guys to hear from Aspen, because she is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to not just building, but the industry in general and what to look for. So thank you so much for taking time away from your 5 little kiddos and your hubby and come on here and pour into them.
I love it. I look forward to seeing all you guys. I hope many of you I get to see at the Nebraska events coming up next weekend. And some of you Michigan ones I will see next month. And if you live somewhere else, hit me up. We'll make it happen.
We'll have a Friendsgiving in Nebraska, and we're having an ugly sweater party in Michigan.
There you go.
So excited.
All right, guys.
Well, thank you so much again, Aspen. All right. Good night, everybody.